Hello and welcome. I am Brian Foster, and we are here talking to everybody on another Sunday night at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, other time zones all around the world. I just put a link for those who, if they're on Facebook, let me write this down, link to use if watching on Facebook. So you can send me your comments. We certainly want everyone to give us their comments. Now today we're talking about chapter 15 of Violets on the Window, Psychography from Spirits to Earth. And this is the interesting part. We're going to look at it from the opposite side. Now, the picture here you see is a illustration of Chico Xavier. He always had it with his hand on his forehead. And there's a reason for this. Actually, the spirit behind him is the spirit Emmanuel. And it was interesting in the book by G. Vallon, they told G. Vallon to do the same thing, put his hand on his head. And why? And the spirit said, look, put your hand on your head. It creates a better feedback loop so we can talk to you better. And of course, now what they'll say is it affects the pineal gland in your brain. And that's kind of the doorway to talking to other sides, to the other side, to the spirits. So then before I begin, please subscribe, hit the like, also hit the bell so you can be notified when you're going to have live streams, and give me comments and ask questions while you can. And hello, everyone who's already commented. So now, also before I begin with what was written in Violets on the Window, is I want to show two books on Spiritism that I believe that if people are interested in being mediums, they should definitely read. And it's the first, really the most important book is the Medium's book by Allan Kardec. And you can find that, of course, you can find that on Amazon. You can click on the picture of Allan Kardec on my website, nwspiritism.com. But you can also type in Allan Kardec space PDF, and you'll find all those books on PDF. So that's how I first read the Medium's book. And the second book I would recommend for people who are interested in mediumship is In the Realms of Mediumship. And that's one of the books by Chico Xavier. And that's where I showed the picture of as we begin with his hand on his head. And again, this explores mediumship. It gives you how the spirits would perceive groups of mediums around the table and how they would see their similarities and working together, and they would create this kind of shining light around them so they could hear and talk to spirits in a better manner. So I'll come back to these books by the end, just make sure, but these are the two. If you're interested in mediumship, I would recommend please read these books before anything else. This will give you a lot of important information. And because how I get questions many times from people who are Catholics or Protestants or evangelicals, as and the Bible says don't talk to spirits. And but what you can say though, in the Bible they talk to spirits all the time. Angels, right? They talk to angels, they talk to demons. So they're all spirits. And all those people, angel, demons, whatever, devils, whatever you want to call them, they're actually all us in different levels of spiritual maturity. And so that's why, yes, there are things you have to be careful about in being a medium. And that's why here in Rio de Janeiro, when a person wants to be a medium, they go to a class and they learn, they all kind of learn together Spiritism for a year, and then they go for another year on actually starting to practice mediumship with a group. And that's a very safe way, because then you're able to discern what type of spirits you're talking to, if they're very mature spirits, or if they're trying to fool you. And of course, in Allan Kardec's The Medium's book, he goes in there and tells you all the different types of spirits and how you can tell. And he says, they'll come with different names and they'll try to appear very intellectual, but the longer you talk to them, you'll be able to ferret out their true level. So it is something not to be taken lightly. So now let's start with what Patricia, now let's set the stage for Patricia. She was a young 19-year-old woman who died. She was a spiritist, died relatively young, went to the colony San Sebastian. And now she's talking about psychography. And of course, psychography is, like some people call it, automatic writing. And that's where a person will sit down and a medium, it's just like they showed the picture of Chico, they'll put their hand on their forehead and they'll write down a message from a spirit. That the spirit will put words into their mind. And there's different ways of doing it. One is they put words into their mind and they write what they hear in their mind or what they think in their mind. Another way, sometimes they will take it and they'll actually take over their arm and they will write. So there's different ways of psychography. Let's start. We entered Aunt Vera's house and found her busy psychographing. Antonio Carlos was dictating and she was writing, distracted and happy. So this is, they were on the earth. She went to her Aunt Vera. Now, her aunt is the one who actually psychographed this whole book I am going and reviewing with you now. So here is Patricia, a spirit, with watching her aunt, who is in human form, right? Psychographing from a spirit, Antonio Carlos. And then Patricia was with Mauricio. He was kind of, staying with her on Earth. She was still kind of new. And he was just kind of showing her the ropes. And Mauricio said, watch how it's done. Do it as Antonio Carlos does. It's very simple. We observed them for several minutes. My aunt was sitting at a desk and Antonio Carlos was sitting beside her, reading from one of his notebooks. His thoughts were fixed on her mind as he read the material. Suddenly, he stopped and told my aunt, surprise, Patricia's here and will dictate a message for her parents. So here's the spirit talking to her aunt, Aunt Vera. So, and then she said, Aunt Vera was really surprised and I could see her concentrating in an effort to feel my presence. To feel means to see by mental perception alone. She thought of me. I smiled happily and came closer. In a few seconds, she became aware of me standing by her side. How beautiful you look, Patricia. Make yourself at home. Let's write. So here, Vera was a powerful medium. She could actually not only sense Patricia, but she could see her. And I've known other mediums who could see spirits. And in fact, I was at this one medium's meeting and a guy was telling me, and this is before we started or after, I can't remember, before we started, I think. And he was telling me that he sees the spirits and he says, when spirits move around, they move like robots, really fast with definite movements. And so it was very interesting how, he said, okay, well, that must be that the time for them, there's such more higher vibrations and frequency. They must move faster. And another time I was at a medium, he couldn't see the spirits, but he could kind of detect them and see kind of like lights. And he said, oh my heavens, that one spirit I saw behind so-and-so, that was the brightest spirit I've seen. And it was very interesting. And then another story, one of the people told me, is that one of the mediums could see spirits like Chico Xavier could see spirits like they were people. And in fact, Chico, one time, he was preparing for a medium's meeting. People were coming in, and some guy said, hi, Chico, how are you doing? He goes, oh, hello, how are you? He goes, oh, and you brought your mother. And he goes, no, I didn't. My mother passed away. And then so he gets confused. And then another time he goes up to a woman and he says, are you an incarnate? He goes, oh, yeah, I am. She goes, oh, good. I just wanted to make sure. So you can tell he was hesitant. He could see spirits so well that he wasn't sure. And another story is a person who could see spirits. He worked in a government office in Brazil, and it was one of those offices where people, kind of like a social worker, would come in at a desk and ask questions. And so sometimes he would take kind of like the desk when people come up and ask questions, and if his coworkers saw him talking with nobody there, and they'd say, "Hey, that's a spirit you're talking to." He goes, "Oh, okay, thank you." So he just, some people have that gift. I, of course, do not. Now I can feel in my arms a tingling sensation when there are spirits around. That I believe is true for me. That's about as far as I can go. I'm pretty dense. That's why I'm not a medium. So let's carry on with Patricia. So she said, "How beautiful you look, Patricia. Make yourself at home." That's right. So I read that. So I came closer, this is Patricia, and hugged her. I dictated slowly. It was a quick note, which my aunt wrote down. I sent my parents hugs, and I thanked them for everything, sending them news about myself. I asked them not to deprive themselves of anything on my account. The process was simpler than I thought, but the explanation of what is a medium is rather complicated, especially if we start from a scientific perspective. What is it? An organic dysfunction? An extra gift? One less? The important thing is to make this sensibility useful by working with it for the good of all, trusting the power of goodness and striving to do the right thing. Honest mediums make this interchange a benefit for many. So let's talk about that for a second. In Spiritism, when you're a medium, you work as a medium. Now, if you write a book or something, that's fine to write books, just like Chico did, make money from the books. But if you're a medium and you're psychographing messages, you never ask for money. And so if you, and of course, now why? Why is that? Because it's a gift from God, and you're using that gift to serve others. So then if you encounter a medium who does ask for money, what will happen is that medium is not that high in their spiritual maturity. And a spirit will talk to a medium that they are in harmony with. So people who are mediums who have been trained via the Spiritist method, they're at least more sophisticated. It doesn't mean they're better people or anything like that. It's just that spiritually they kind of understand things, and they were on a higher harmony with higher spirits. But if you go to your local fortune teller who may have a really good mediumistic talent, they will tend to be talking to lower spirits. And so a higher spirit will tell you things like, how you should, the path on your life, how you should study. It's more like a good teacher who won't give you the answers, but will extol you to do better. Whereas a lower spirit may play with you. They may tell you their future may be right or wrong. And they can see, even lower spirits can see some of your future. The higher spirits can see more of your future. Let me carry on with what you're saying. When we finished writing, I thanked my aunt and walked away. Believing I had already left, she started crying, feeling nostalgic. I took advantage of the opportunity to see my cousins and to hug them all. Mauricio asked, "Aunt Vera received so many messages. Do discarnates like to write?" And he said, "Almost all. Didn't you enjoy it? Isn't it a pleasure to send news to one's relatives?" Because I don't know anyone at the colony who writes to relatives except for Grandma. And Mauricio said, "Well, psychography is not such a normal occurrence. There are many mediums who could do it, but only a few do. The reluctance decreases the channels of interchange. In any event, just a few incarnates wish to receive messages, with most not believing it's possible. Messages should be requested, not given. It's the same as with all other blessings." So let me stop there for a second. The Reverend G. Baon, who is just a marvelous medium, and I've written, many articles and books based on a lot of his writings and revelations he got from spirits. He said that he went through like 10 years, and I could be off a number of years. He went through years of thinking, is this right? And this, of course, and I don't blame any medium for this. So they think, is this me thinking it, or is this some spirit actually talking to me? And that's why Patricia's being said that few do. And it's not because not wanting to, is that they don't want to fool themselves, and they don't want to write something that is not true, and they don't want to advertise it as from the spirits when they go, well, I'm not sure. Is this my imagination? It's a very heavy burden, and it's not easy for mediums to overcome. So I don't blame any medium who say, I don't know if this is true or not, because it's hard. Think about putting thoughts in your brain. And then, of course, you know how all of us think. Being here on earth is tough because we have thoughts come at us. I mean, if you're trying to meditate, can you actually clear your thoughts? It's so tough for me. Maybe for other people it's much easier, but I have my own thoughts coming in. Now, maybe sometimes they aren't, but I mean, it's like I have my own stupid thoughts coming in. I start wandering somewhere. So it's not easy. You have to really work at this. Then he said, the leader there said, now we'll go again to your house so you can say goodbye to your mother. Then we'll return to the colony. So Patricia said, I kissed my mother again and was asking her to be happy when the telephone rang. It was my aunt telling her the good news. So she teleported from her aunt's house to her mother's house and beat the telephone, right? It's like, of course, and it's called volitation in Spiritist literature. It means you go by the speed of thought. The speed of light is not a speed limit in the spirit world. Then she heard her mother. Goes, did you see her? My mother asked emotionally. Does she look pretty? Well, bless the Lord. She hung up the phone, looked at the painting of Jesus that decorated one of the walls of our living room, and prayed sincerely, thanking him with tears in her eyes and pleading, oh, Jesus, thank you very much. Always look after her for me, please. Oh, Jesus, also take care of them, please, Patricia added with equal fervor. We volitated back to the colony's gate. It opened and we entered. I remained silent, but felt good, my homesickness subsiding a little. I knew they were suffering, and yet they were doing their best so that I would have the peace of mind I needed during this adjustment. My mother was the one suffering the most. And of course, Patricia was still adjusting to life as a spirit. It's not like, oh, one moment you're a incarnate, a physical being, next moment you're a spirit and you're just as good as gold. There's, a little bit of confusion. Of course, it depends how spiritually mature they are. I'm sure there are ones that just can switch over fast, but for the majority of us, it's you're getting back memories. And in fact, you don't get back all your memories of your past life until you are ready for them, because a lot of them could be really too terrible for you to contemplate when you're trying to feel good, especially when your levels of heaven feel good and feel calm. Because I've been told things about my past life already, which is like, if I really could see the pictures of what I did, I would feel pretty bad. So then Mauricio said, well, things pass, little Patricia. Time heals all wounds, but it leaves scars, I answered. And he said, scars don't hurt. You'll always remember your loved ones since they love you. Time will alleviate even this yearning. I thank all of you for everything, I said, touch. And then Federico said, let's go to the theater. So, and it's interesting when she said it leaves scars. And there was a wonderful passage in one of the messages from a spirit to the Reverend G. Vaughn. And they were talking about, he was there on a field and he was thinking, why does the spirit world make us go through these harsh trials? Why do we have to, go through these vicissitudes, these tribulations that are emotionally devastating? And then a spirit came and the higher spirit came and started talking to him about it. He said, well, he goes, you were just laying on a bed of flowers and now you just got up. He goes, you squashed those flowers. He goes, yeah, I did. Now I feel bad about it. He goes, now look at them. Well, they're okay again. Yes. He goes, the same thing with us. We go to earth. We have these trials and tribulations, but we recover, but they add to our character and our personality. And then the spirit was talking to Jiva and said, I looked into his face and I could see the pain he went through, but I also saw the beauty. And it's the same thing that you hear from spirits, from many different spiritist writers. And they talk about Jesus. They see the pain he went through. They see the magnificence. They see the beauty of him, but they also see the bad times. They see the empathy he gets by going through periods of horrible life and torture for him as he went through with us. And so it's all part of creating just I hate to say this, but a well-rounded, perfect, a better spirit who can understand the lows, understands the highs, and grows with it. So some scars, they're there to add to our character. So back to the theater. He said, we all agreed to go. The feature attraction was a choir from another colony which sang beautiful songs. He goes, I had fun, all friends. What would be of us without them? From time to time, one of them would accompany me to visit my family. It had to be that way until I could go by myself. It is an indescribable joy to visit one's family. Federico once explained to me, Patricia, you can go on these visits because you don't get disturbed by them. The majority of those who discarnate wait for a long time for this opportunity. They need to have understood and to have accepted their passing. Plus, their family must be resigned to their loss. The discarnates may want to stay, and sometimes they do, particularly if they find too many problems in their households or if relatives call them asking for help. The counselors in the colony have to evaluate all these problems before granting permission for a visit to loved ones, because in many cases, these visits can be harmful to the visitor. So again, that is many spirits can't handle going down and visiting their family. And they may want to stay and help, but they really don't know how to help. They haven't been trained. And I also know the family itself may just long for that person. And if they feel the presence of that person, may just kind of hold them with their psychic energy. I know this family that had a son who had a brain tumor removed, and he was almost in the almost vegetative state. And then he really slipped into a coma. And he stayed in this coma. He was being cared for at home for, I think, a couple of years. And a medium came to talk to him. They were spirits. They said, look, you're holding him here on earth. You keep wanting him to come out of that coma. You're holding him. You're not allowing him to be free of this prison of his physical body. And that can happen. And that's where, and as I've said before on these talks, when someone passes on, you always want to try and think positive. You can certainly have your grief, but don't say, oh, I need you. Say like Patricia's family, please, spirits, please help her, find herself, help her grow, help her learn in the spirit world. We're fine. So then Patricia said, I always wrote many letters and messages to my family, telling them about the things I saw and felt so they could follow my progress. This way I felt less homesick. When I could not go and dictate, one of my friends would do it for me. Antonio Carlos, who had always encouraged me to send messages, explained, Patricia, the ability to communicate messages isn't a privilege either. It only happens due to two factors. Your parents deserve it, and it's the beginning of your training. She says, training? He goes, why are you surprised? Your aunt has always been able to read your thoughts. The interchange is easy between you two. Yes, training. Surely later on, you'll want to relate everything you're learning here to our incarnate brothers and sisters. Write books, I said, laughing heartily. Antonio Carlos also laughed. Why not? Because I'm not a writer. You'll learn how to be one. And then she said, I did not give it another thought, but continued sending my messages home to my relatives. They were my treats of comfort to their hearts. I continued watching my family on the television device. Of course, that device is a device that could zoom in and concentrate on your family, and you could watch your family around. And as Patricia said in earlier chapters, not everybody had these. Only if you could stand the where you weren't too longing for that family, or said, oh no, they're doing something stupid again. You as you're a spirit and you go higher and higher, you've got to look at your family like they're kindergartners or they're puppy dogs, right? They're going to run around, they're going to make messes, they're going to make mistakes. But that's all a part of being a child or a puppy, right? You're gonna do stupid things. You're gonna put your hand close to the stove and maybe get it burned, but that's part of your learning experience. That's why we're on Earth. Remember, the Earth is a campus. The Earth is where young, immature spirits, that's us, that's myself included, we go to really rip out our primitive emotions, hate, envy, jealousy, pride, selfishness, and put in love, charity, fraternity, and understanding. It's not an easy process, especially given our culture, right? Where we are puffed up with pride and we want all the latest goods. It's a challenge. So then the Patricia said, I did not give it another thought, but continued sending my messages home to my relatives. They were my treats of comfort to their hearts. I continued watching my family on the television device, only for a few minutes each day, being careful not to overdo it. We have to control ourselves, otherwise we would be watching them all the time. We are the ones who determine when it is the best time to watch our families. I had decided that afternoons or nights were better for me. I would pray beforehand, would watch them, then I would turn the device off and pray again, striving always to be tranquil. It was rare for someone to own such a device. Arthur had given it to me, and it was only possible because Arthur, an unpretentious spirit with many years of productive work, had received the unit as a reward. There are rooms in some buildings of the colony where these televisions can be found, such as schools and hospitals, where discarnates may ask for permission to use them. They are especially helpful at the hospital, where convalescing patients worry so much about their families and wish to know how they are doing. But before such a request can be granted, now she's really showing us the process of the spirit world, right? This is where you're going to be going. This is, these are the rules and processes and procedures you will be living through. Now, we know that this is the low, one of the lowest levels of heaven. And those on higher levels have kind of know already they don't have to see their family all the time because they know whatever's happening is a blueprint, it's a path decided by the spirit world, by God and by Jesus to help that spirit. And you don't have to worry with them in every ups and down in their life. They're going to go there, they'll be fine. What's the worst going to happen to them? They go back to the spirit world, then they're back with you. You're an immortal spirit. What are you worried about? So now this is the process. So before such a request, I'm reading, can be granted, it must be carefully analyzed. Only if the instructors believe it will be useful can a spirit take advantage of this gratifying resource. The whole process is necessary because most discarnates, upon seeing their loved ones, even if it's only on television, cry in desperation, causing their condition to worsen. Each case is a case. If the spirit is feeling better, knows about this possibility and wants to use it, it makes a request, and the counselors will analyze whether it will or not be able to utilize this marvelous apparatus. After permission is granted, they report to the designated room accompanied by their counselors. Even then, there is the possibility that it may not work. This is a blessing for so many, the joy to find out how their families are faring and to see them again. For others, it may not be, because it is very uncomfortable to see one's relatives suffering and with problems. Most of the residents here like to avail themselves of this resource, and those who pay for the service, I think this is fair. Oh, and those who work pay for the service. I think this is fair because it's a way to motivate people and to reward workers. Let's talk about pay for the service. What does she mean by that? What she means by that is that in these lower levels of heaven, and we're talking, this is the lower levels, right? And this is why they're very careful. And also the lower levels of heaven, the spirits there tend to be more connected to the material world. As the higher levels, they lose that connection, as I said before. And therefore, they also want them, they would like them to start working, right? Because, as I said many times before, heaven isn't the Elysian fields. You don't sit there and drink your drink with the umbrella in it, next to the beach. No, you're working. And you get bonus hours. And what bonus hours are, and it's not all the colonies are alike. So this is just like at San Sebastian or No Solar. Is every hour you work, you get a bonus hour, and everyone gets the same rate, except people who maybe work with children, and they get like double or 1.5. So, but even the governor of the city gets bonus hours, but he probably doesn't even need them. He's a higher spirit, doesn't even think about that. And then, so with bonus hours, you get to use this apparatus to watch your family. You get to go to concerts. Now, if you don't want to work, you have free will not to work. You still have shelter. you still go, do other things, go around the colony. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. So here, I want to show this comment before I carry on with the book. And here's from KM. Loving this book. My girlfriend took her own life almost 2 years ago. She often visits my dream state and takes over my consciousness when I'm writing to her. I can relate to this book so much. And so again, this is, and it's so wonderful that that she, visits you in your dream. And in fact, relate this one story is, I had talked back and forth with this woman who had lost her baby son. And she said she felt terrible. I go, oh, I said, well, can you tell me about it? Because, well, he looked like he was fine. And then, but, I blame myself for losing him. So I talked to her some more. I said, but I've had dreams. And I had a dream that I was at this beach and I saw this, this like 17-year-old teenager, really good looking kid. And I knew it was my son. He said, Mom, don't worry. Everything's fine. It was as it should be. I said, well, that was the spirit world giving you that dream. They were trying to comfort you in your grief. And I said, because, well, I don't understand why he left so young. And then I said, okay, did he have any defect that caused him to die? She goes, well, why did you ask that? I said, I asked that because many spirits who, this is reminding me of, let's say, committed suicide in the past or died in some, in a horrible way as they committed suicide, their perispirit is damaged. And they have to come back for a certain amount of time. And it could be very little time, like a baby born for a couple hours, to repair that perispirit. And then she goes, well, yeah, because we didn't notice there was a heart defect that I didn't see. And she's a doctor. And we tried to operate, but he still died. I goes, well, that was destined. He was supposed to have died. And now he's in the dream. They're telling you that, don't worry, I'm fine, right? He's saying that he's fine. And then he goes, well, my mother also had a dream. And he says, my mother had a dream that I was going to have another baby. And this was, he was going to be him. I said, that's happened in the past too. I've read of that where you'll lose a baby, but then the spirit will come because they need to be repaired in their perispirit, and the spirit will come back as the next baby. Then she goes, well, my father-in-law also had a dream. I said, how lucky you are. You're being given this gift by by spirits to all sorts of your family telling you to feel better. And of course, it's easy for me to say, right? And it's hard for someone to absorb. And he goes, my father-in-law dreamt that he was talking to my passed away son. And my son said, look, this is all as it should be. The spirit world is love. And, my life was exactly how it was planned for me to stay just a short time. And so these are the things of spirit world. This is what's happening to you. Is that you're being visited. Now, here's another comment. We're from the UK. I'd love to find out more about our colony and where it may be. I often ask her where it is when she visits, but I sense that she can't say very much and can't talk about the spirit world life. So this is typical of people who have passed away by suicides. So she may be in a hospital where she's recovering, and it may take years for her to recover. And she may have some, typical psychological issues why she took her own life, and therefore, don't worry about not hearing from her, or she can't say much because she's probably really isn't capable, and she's going through intense training and intense healing, I should say. A good book for you to read to learn about suicide, which is fascinating, is, let me bring this book up now that I think of it, which is this book right here. One of the best books I've ever read. It's Memoirs of a Suicide by Ivan A. Piera. And it follows the life of Camino Branco. And what he did, he committed suicide in 1899. And he goes to like a whole hospital of suicides. And it's got some frightening portions in that which may not pertain to your girlfriend, right? Suicides not necessarily go to the lower zone. It all depends on the circumstances and their health. So there's many different circumstances, but this may be interesting for you to explore and to give you a good idea of the spirit world. But as for colonies, I don't know. I've heard of No Solar above Rio de Janeiro, San Sebastian in a colony above the city San Sebastian in Minas Gerais, another state in Brazil. There's other colonies. I know Chico, when he visited many colonies. He visited a colony above Jerusalem. He says very interesting, on the lower level, the colony above Jerusalem, there was no mention of Jesus Christ whatsoever. So it all conforms to the culture and the beliefs of the people of that local colony, right? The spirit world doesn't try to say, here's all this new information. They always try to bring you in gradually. So I hope that helps a little bit. Let's get back to Patricia. And if you have any other questions, please do. In fact, I will reserve time pretty soon for more questions. He goes, Arthur, I asked, I've received many gifts, even of bonus hours. Why is this possible? And he said, there is so much pleasure in giving. Certainly, we have the freedom to offer our bonus hours as gifts to others. But we're careful not to encourage laziness or idleness in the person receiving them. We give to those who have arrived most recently, friends and relatives, to please and encourage them to be useful. And then she said, well, you gave me your TV. It was such a wonderful gift to my heart. All the gifts I received were given with love and affection. Accordingly, I was very grateful to receive them. And he said, well, I never used this device. It was delightful to have received the unit, so I kept it. Giving it to you will actually put it to good use. It makes me very happy. It's always gratifying to give joy to a friend. All those who face reality with simplicity realize that passing over does not separate them from their loved ones, so they do not miss them too much. So that was the end of that chapter of psychography. So I hope that was interesting. Now, if anyone wants to ask any other questions, I can certainly go through and answer them. In fact, last Tuesday I had many different questions about spiritism, spirits, and yourself. So anything even off topic from psychography. But to get back to where the spirit world is, I think another good resource for people to use to learn about heaven and the heavenly life and where people actually are and how they live in the spirit world is my book, Heaven and Below, book 1 of Spiritism. And I got a lot of this from the wonderful Reverend G. Val Owen. And of course, I wrote this book. I wrote this book and this next two books, and it's all about Heaven and Below, where I talk what is heaven, what's the lower zone, what's the dark abyss, who is Jesus in the spirit world, because Jesus is so much more than a wonderful, nice carpenter who told us many revealing things. He really is like the CEO and governor of our whole planet and brought the planet Earth from nothing to where it is today, kind of husbanded and guided the evolution of different plants and animals, and of course of the human race. And I write this as so I believe the more you understand why you're on Earth, understand what's waiting for you, it's like when you go work for a company and you explore, okay, this is where I'm at now. This is the levels above me. This is what they do. This is their functions. This is the procedures and process in this company. I can make the decision I want to go for that higher level, or I might like where I'm at for 10 more years, right? I like doing what I'm doing. And then you'll plan your life and make your decisions accordingly. And that's why what I think that people need to learn about the spirit world. It's not like this ethereal, cloudy place. It's real. In fact, the spirit world is the real world. We are in this campus. We're in this summer camp, if you want to say, where we learn about certain things. It's really, we're in this physical body to do one main thing, and that is to change our character and our personality. So why do we have to be sent here? Why do we even have to go to earth and learn these things in this kind of harsh manner, right? Because there's terrible things that happen to good people. Well, because in this physical body, we are more able, or actually, I would say less able to withstand emotional trauma. So, stimuli and emotions wash over us and really cause us to do deep analysis to change ourselves. Where think of if you were with Patricia in the spirit colony, you never went hungry, you were never sick, you can't be unemployed, you work when you want to work. You've got friends who all support you and love you, and we can give you their bonus hours if you want to be lazy, right? How are you going to have that trauma to dig out some of those prejudices and, kind of little petty jealousies that we all have and enviness, right? How are you going to dig that out? You may be a really good person, but you still have some imperfections, right? And what is our goal? Our goal is to become a perfect spirit. And so my second book is Spirit and the Spirit Universe. So that's talking about, okay, this first book was, this is the environment. Now, what are you in this environment? What are you as a spirit? What is the spirit universe? How do you learn? Do you transform? You are energy and matter. And it's telling you as you go higher and higher in the spirit hierarchy. Right now, Patricia's at this low level in heaven. It's a wonderful place. But there are higher levels of heaven. In fact, in the book No Solar, Henri Louis says he meets his mother, right? Who's from a higher level. And he goes, oh, mother, you're so lucky to be in a higher level of heaven. She goes, don't think it's like this marvelous nirvana where all we do is pray all day. We work hard. And that's exactly true, right? As you go higher, you have more tasks, but it's fun, right? It's you have the tasks that you just love doing. It's like hopefully everyone here has had this one job where they loved it. They love the people around them. They love hanging around them, and of course, that never lasts too long, right? Unfortunately, but that's what it's like. And then but as the Bible says, as more is given, more is expected. So as you learn, and you go to these sets of colleges and learn about the spirit universe, and you graduate to the next level, you don't just graduate with a piece of paper. You are actually given more tools in your toolbox. You are actually less matter, more energy, and you have more attributes you can use to explore the spirit world. And of course, whatever level you're in, you can volatilate and go to the level you're in and below, but you can't go up, right? Because that's too painful. You're too much matter, not enough, and ratio of matter than energy. So as you go higher, you can have a wider range of travel of where you would like to be. And so in the spirit and spirit universe, I really talk about how this works, how you graduate, how things are created, right? What is created? How does this create? Because this, remember, in the spirit universe, and you don't even hardly read any fantasy and science fiction books that thought is action. When you think, you create. Even Patricia in this book, in the lower level of heaven, her grandmother, the first thing she says, well, this is all a logical construct, right? All these buildings, they were all created by thought. And of course, the people in the level she's at, they don't create by thought. They have to be a higher level. And usually like groups of people go and they'll create buildings or temples or whole lakes and oceans and environments, right? As the Apostle Paul said in one of the psychographic writings, right, is the aim of every person is to become omnipotent, right? Meaning that you're going to be like a God, that you will create things. This is what, Jesus is like to us, like a God, because he created the earth. He helped husband the whole human, evolution. So we can be these creatures that can take a soul with free will. And he said, that's how you should look at your life, is be as thoughtful and caring as your life, as if you have omnipotent power over everybody, because that's what you will be someday. And of course, no one is going to give us omnipotent power on with, let's take myself, for example, of how petty my mind operates, right? Someone cuts me off on the road. I go, why did you cut me off on the road? Right. And of course, then I would let these primitive emotions, I don't do that today. I do, it still could happen, but I'm trying to be better. But then all these primitive emotions come forth. Now, if I was in the spirit and I had this power, I wouldn't be trusted with that power, would I? And this is, of course, so this should give you an understanding why, these are pretty tough. So how are we husbanded through this? And that's what I talk about in my third book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, and how spirits help us and how spirits guide all nations and cultures, right? They tell us in these books that the earth has had advanced technological civilizations before. They said Atlantis was real. Lemuria was real. There were others, but they never said what their names were. They said there were other civilizations. In fact, they said that Atlantis had radio waves and things like that. So they were pretty advanced. Why were they forced to retreat? Because their technological advance was higher than their spiritual advance. And so this, again, I've talked about this in other videos. In 1969, men went to the moon. And the Council of Advanced Spirits, I don't think I have their name right, they met and they said, well, should we tear down the civilization and have them start over again? Because, they went to the moon, but they're not spiritually ready for this. And of course, and so that's the spirit world looking at us. And there's also aliens around close to our same dimension, or at least can go through dimensions. And they're kind of watching us too. But what I heard from what Chico said is that no, because Jesus interceded, said, no, let's give them 50 years. And if they don't have a nuclear war, we will carry on to become a planet of regeneration, which we passed that in July of 2019. And Chico said a lot of marvelous things will happen after July of 2019. Well, we are more than a year after that. And so we'll see what happens. They said aliens will come and visit us. Now, I believe, people ask me, well, when? I said, I don't know. But one time, Chico was talking to someone. He said, yeah, it's going to be within your lifetime. And that was probably at the end of the 20th century. So it could be 10 years from now. It's not going to be like 100 years from now. I think it's going to be in 5 or 10 years from now. I could be wrong. I don't know. Don't trust me on that one. So there are so many things that are going on, and that we're being herded. It's just like here we are in elementary school, and then they're going to put us into middle school or junior high, however you say it in whatever country you are, and you'll graduate to the next campus. So that's where we are. So the Earth right now is the planet of atonement, and that's where, what do I mean by planet of atonement? That's where we pay for our past wrongs. So when we do something wrong in our last life, our previous life, we pay for it in this life. So here's the process, right? Our last life, it's recorded. Everything's recorded. I just want to tell everybody, you have no privacy. Everything, every thought, feeling is recorded. In fact, in that book, I said, members of suicide, they tell them everything's recorded. That's why we can show you scenes of whatever past minute of life you've had and show you what other people are thinking. And you see these reports in NDEs, near-death experiences, also. So then your current life was constructed and planned out because of what you went through in your previous life. And I always tell people, if you want a better next life, because you're going to have to do it, you can stall for a long time. You don't have to be reincarnated, but at some time you're going to say, I want to improve, I want to go up a level. That will be used to determine your next life. Now, before I leave, I want to show one more time. I want to show these books about mediumship, because we're talking about that. This really is the gem that people should read if you hear voices, you see things, you feel things, you hear things, right? Audio. This goes through all sorts of types of mediums. And one of the things is in the mediums book, they says we're all mediums, we're inspirational mediums. And what do they mean? What does Allan Kardec mean by that? And what do the spirits mean by that? Who told them that? And that is spirits will inspire us, right? Good spirits will inspire us. So here's another. Okay, so awesome. Thanks, I'll buy that book. She told me she had been in a period of healing because she chose a difficult life. She was only 21. So I also often dream of her working in a hospital looking after children. That is probably true. That sounds very logical of what would happen. And she probably had to be in a period of healing. And she probably bit off more than she could chew by deciding on a tough life. And I read this sometimes quite a lot, where people will actually challenge themselves a bit too much. So that's something to think about. And so that, yeah, I can see that completely, that she would be in a place, and then now what will happen is she'll come back again, and hopefully she will handle what they'll give her a different curriculum, something more that she can handle, and God willing, you can be with her. She said she looks after kids who cross over and don't have any parents in the spirit world, and also looked after young kids who took their own life like she did because she can understand them. Again, it's so reasonable. Yes, and if you read my book, Spirits in the Spirit World, there are children in the spirit world, and there are children who don't have any parents. Now, why is that? Why would children have no parents in the spirit world? Well, that parents could still be incarnated. But if the parents are still incarnated and they were loving parents, the spirit world would arrange for them to visit that child in spirit form when they were asleep. Other children may have been aborted or had parents who are not nice people, who actually maybe have killed their own children, or something like that. And therefore, then they don't bring those parents into the spirit world. They have to watch them. Now, the question people could ask is, why would you be a child in the spirit world? Why is that? Because after all, these children aren't just children for the first time. They've had other lives. And so why aren't they an adult again? Now, this is my theory, and I have not read this specifically anywhere in spirit communications. I always just say there's children. There's even children who were stillborn who are being raised in the spirit world. But this is my theory, and take it as you would like, and disagree with me, please, if you have other ideas. Is for a spirit who's gone through life after life, and they really haven't gotten that improvement in their character and their personality. This is a type of reboot, right? When your laptop just won't work and you get that blue screen of death if you're using, Microsoft Windows, you're rebooted. And I believe this is kind of how the spirit world says, okay, if the child dies, we're going to take this opportunity to re-raise them in the spirit world with healthier outlook, and hopefully mold their character by having someone like your girlfriend who's probably loving and helping these children and understand what happened with them, and help them grow and kind of get a core of a better personality and character. That is my opinion, only my opinion. Just want to make sure that I'm not basing this on anything I specifically read, but what I believe indirectly, what I found out. So, as to KM, everything you've written about what you have learned sounds completely logical. So if you were at all worried that you were fooling yourself, in my opinion, you were not fooling yourself. You were having real dreams of you visiting in the spirit world. Now, it's amazing that you're allowed to know this much, because usually you have to remember, when you go to the spirit world, you're in this other dimension, right? And time is not, time's part of that dimension. And therefore, that's why most people's dreams are very fuzzy. You don't remember. You're kind of traumatized as you go in and out of your body, etc. And you have all these symbols, right? And I know there's books about what symbols mean, but really, I would say it's really what's important what a symbol means to you in your context, because your mind doesn't really understand what you're seeing. And so you interpret it wrong and it becomes some sort of symbol. But a lot of times you can remember how you felt. Did you feel good? If you felt good in your dream, then you were probably in a higher place. If you felt good talking to your girlfriend, you were in a place with her. If you felt confused and worried or scared, then you were not in a good place, most probably. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. But no, I would absolutely say you probably don't need validation, but everything you've said sounds what I've read in other places. And it's wonderful that your girlfriend is there. Think positive for her. Think healing thoughts. And someday you can have another life together. It was made for that. That was planned, and it was hard for her. I do know people many times will plan lives that are very difficult. And it's just too much. In fact, there was this one woman who was a queen of Spain. And she did not directly send people to the torture chamber, but she signed warrants for arrest by the Spanish Inquisition. And she went life after life. And finally she said, no, I need a really harsh trial. I feel too guilty. I need to wash this out for me. And she picked a life of being very disabled. She just really sacrificed herself. But that's what she wanted, right? Most of the times, not all the time, if you're a spirit who's in heaven, let's say like Patricia, or let's say your girlfriend, she will, in guidance with other spirits, plan out her life and what the blueprint should be. Now, if you're from the lower zone or from lower, like the dark abyss, you will be assigned certain things because you're not going to be part of that, of the ability to consult. It's like if you're elementary school or junior high or high school, this is the class you get. But if you're in college, you say, well, I like this election, I like this. So the more responsible you are, the more ability you have to decide what trials and tribulations you would like to go and what you would like to learn and experience. Not everything is a payback for a past life. Some things are just new experiences. So I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And please I love answering questions. I love helping anyone who I can. And of course, I am on, remember, subscribe, hit the bell, please hit the like. I live stream every Sunday and Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. And of course, I get people from all around the world now. And so I welcome everyone, and God bless, and help us spread Spiritism throughout the world. God bless everybody.